Hello everyone, welcome to night 36 of the Orphan's Tales quarantine reading series. Sorry that we had to take a couple nights off there. It was the windstorm that would not stop. We had over 50-mile-an-hour winds for 2 days straight. Everything was flickering. It was just a mess. I don't even know. It just would not end. So sorry that we had to put everything on pause. I just had no confidence in basically the electricity, the internet, anything to support streaming of any kind. So sorry about that. I try not to miss nights, but it happens sometimes. Yeah, so welcome. This is all still happening. Things, I guess, are opening up. It's a terrible idea, but they're doing it anyway, so I do not take that as the time to end these readings, as I'm definitely not leaving my house. But, you know, we'll see what happens. Let's do all of our intro crap where I say my name 1,000 times. I forgot to set up SJ's music. Take 2 days off and you're a mess coming back in. You can find music based on these books at sjtucker.com. They're amazing. She's amazing. And tons of other music as well. You can follow me on Twitter at @CatValenti. You can subscribe to my Patreon at @CatValenti. My Patreon is going to be a very exciting place this month. We've got a new reward scheme. You can ask me questions after the reading, but I hate sitting here. Oh, I forgot to make a drink too. I'm so off my game. I hate sitting here with a drink, but I don't have a drink, so it will be even more awkward. So if you have questions, please think of them while we're reading so you can pop right up and save me the awkwardness. As always, for legal reasons, this is not an audiobook of The Orphan's Tales, but a play, a one-woman show. You can catch up with the archive at CatValenti Live on YouTube. And you can put a tip in the tip jar on my Instagram profile or my YouTube profile or my website, which is catherinemvalenti.com. It's not required, but it is deeply, deeply appreciated as times are very tight and very rough around here. And the longer this drags on, the longer people don't pay invoices and the longer freelancer life really and truly sucks. So every tiny little coin in the witch's hat means the world, and I will thank you by name on the next stream if anyone does. I think that is everything. So, oh, look at us, look at us, look how little we have left. We're getting there. We're doing it slowly but surely. With these giant pages. Look how big these pages are, by the way. All these, I mean, it's deckled edge and all that. Like, it's a beautiful book. But these pages are huge, and the print is not that big. So, if they had made this like a normal trim size, it would definitely be a way fatter book. I think each one, so this has got to be like 180,000 words, I think, in this beast. So it would be, it comes in at under 500 pages, and it definitely wouldn't in a normal trim size. But this is the only trim size it ever came out in. Never came hardback, never came in regular trade paperback or mass market or anything. This is it. I guess it probably won't now, unless some miracle happens. But for now, we have these giant pages for me to wrangle for you every night. All right. We just finished up with the Satyr and the Selkie, and we are back in with the tale of Saint Sigrid continued. I wandered for a while, out of the forest and away from everything. I didn't mean to find the sea, but eventually the soil turned to sand and the air became full of fog and seagulls, and there it was. A dockside beggar told me of a ship which wanted women for a crew, a magic ship with a red hull and a fox for a captain. I signed on faster than a leopard catching a rabbit in her jaws, and Tommy was glad to have me. I never understood what he said about the instinct for leaving till I saw this ship, but once I did, there was no telling me I couldn't have it. The leaving had me, and I went with it, just as my shroud did. I don't miss him the way I used to. Satyrs aren't made for grieving. But once in a while, when the sea is very calm, I dream of skins, endless skins like the layers of an onion. But here I am. Anything that happens below decks on the Maidenhead is my territory, and that's not such a bad story to be in the middle of. The ship suddenly lurched to one side, and a strange sizzling sound filled the air. Eshko leapt from the bunk, her hooves sounding heavily on the floorboards. "The boiling sea," she cried. "Sigurd, you won't want to miss it. A sight no other crew could ever survive." The pair emerged above decks to find a riot of sound and movement. The Armaspians were leaning over the prow in their eagerness, oblivious to how difficult it was for the sail riggers to work around them. One of the lesser men leered at a young djinn, who flicked her fiery fingers at him and ignited his beard. His companions howled in indignation and beat out the flames. Tomomo herself stood calmly at the wheel, guiding her ships through the boiling sea, which no longer buffeted the sleek craft with waves, but with violent bubbles and hissing steam. The ocean was alive and furious, sizzling against the flanks of the ship, sending up rolling columns of scalding water that caught more than one woman across the face with its blistering spray. At first, most had been fascinated by the suddenly raging sea, but one by one they learned to stay well away from the rails and give their attention only to the lines and sails. The sound of it was deafening. It was like a scream of wind tearing through a child's paper house, crumpling the walls and rafters as it blows. Sigrid hung back near the stern, leaning over the rails and breathing the steam of the sea. She looked into the horizon, wind whipping her dusky hair onto her cheeks, and for a moment, just a moment, she could see, on the edge of the water where the calm met the boil, a gray seal's head bobbing up and down in the surf, barking softly, mournfully, unable to follow. "Sigrid, attend me!" Uluwalkim hollered from his position at the bow. She turned reluctantly and trotted up to him, standing just behind his group and hoping he would not need her for anything. The king held a long brass spyglass in his fierce black fist, brandishing it like a sword. "Look, the hidden isle. Not very well hidden, of course, but no stupid griffin hen can hide from the ocular." He held out the spyglass to Sigrid with an expression that made it clear he felt he was being extremely generous. She put it to her eye, and indeed a slim line of land was glimmering in the distance, looming larger with each moment that passed. The maidenhead was cutting through the roiling water with incredible speed, hardly slowed at all. Sigrid hoped in vain that the wind would die, that they would not be able to reach the isle and murder poor Kuri. But before she knew it, they had moored offshore and filled one of the long boats with eager-faced Armaspians and long-eared Tomomo, and Sigrid herself was reluctantly climbing into the crowded craft. The hidden isle was little more than a scrap of sand in the middle of an angry sea. The surf bubbled up onto the white beach, and the driftwood scattered along the shore was scalded red as flesh. There might once have been a tower in the center of the patch of earth, but it had crumbled into little more than a jumble of broken rocks. Some of them still stood, one atop the other, so that a piece of wall could be seen and the arch of what might have once been a window, but no more. The troop clambered onto solid ground, and almost immediately the Armaspians charged over the dunes with a dreadful cry, having easily sighted the nest of the white beast on the north end of the strand. Sigrid hung back with her captain. "You're wondering why I would take these men aboard, when they're only going to render an entire race extinct," Tomomo said gently. "You think it is hard and cruel. That is what piracy is. We are free women, and so we do not obey the rules everyone else bows and scrapes to. If the gold they give us will patch our sails and put wine on our table, we will ferry them. If it turns your stomach, I will leave you on this island, and you can make your own way off it." Sigrid said nothing. When they arrived at the nest, the white griffin was screeching like a wounded bear, beating her wings against the wave of Armaspians, jabbing their swords and spears at her. She desperately fought to shield her nest, snatching one of the men in her jaws and tearing into his soft belly, hurling another against the jagged ruins. And under her haunches, the two women could see 3 large eggs, blue and white, as slabs of sky. "It's a very inefficient offensive, Alua. I thought you and your tribe were expert hunters. Clearly I was misinformed," Tommy hollered. The griffin hissed at her, bright feathers flying. She was white from the tip of her tail to the crown of her head. Even the fur on her lion haunches was pale as a glacier. Only her claws and beak were golden, the rest of her entirely blanched of color, pure as the sandy beach. Her eyes flashed, crackling with panic and despair. Uluwalkim seemed to consider for a moment, then nonchalantly signaled to his men. They obeyed instantly, backing away from the rabid creature. "What would you suggest, Sea Rat?" Will you lend us your long cannons? A single broadside would have us a fine griffin supper in a mere moment, and your payment, he snapped. Seeing her opportunity, Sigrid dashed past the adorned hunters and dove into the nest, while the griffin roared her protests. She spread her skinny body as wide as she could, pitifully trying to block any spear's flight to the beast or the precious eggs. Of course, the griffin towered over her, entirely vulnerable. "I won't let you kill her," she screamed. Both monarchs, the one of the sea and the other of the land, looked at her with amused impatience. "You are a very bad servant, little girl," Oluwakim observed. He was quite calm, not at all perturbed by the notion of dispatching a child along with a beast. "Do you really think a creature of that size needs you to shield it?" Tommy asked, grinning mischievously. "Of course I don't," bellowed the griffin, her voice echoing over the desolate beach like the flight of a single black bird. "But it's the gesture that counts." She nuzzled Sigrid roughly, a strange kind of reward for her bravery. "So you've come for me, have you? My brother told me you would one day." "Was that before or after he quickened your eggs, you barbaric half-breed? Even dogs don't deign to mate brother to sister," he scoffed. "Don't try to shame me, ape. I know your nest is empty of roosters. What right have you to mock mine which is not? We have no law against such things. And where was there another male to give me chicks? Thanks to you, he was the last." "I did nothing to him," sneered the Arimaspian. "He was torn into carrion, dumb meat, and nothing more." She flinched and stared at the king with such hatred the rest of his companions stepped slightly away from him, expecting a furious attack. "I saw it, Kuri," he taunted, tapping his golden eye with one dark finger. "I saw them devour your blue brother. They licked their lips and made a feast of him. They threw his bones to their dogs. Why don't you tell us the tale? We have time. I shall kill you before or after. I have no preference. I listen to the sire prattle on like a wind-up toy. I can extend the same courtesy to the dam. Everyone here loves to hear tales. Tell them how your brother died the day he lent his color to your eggs." Kuri bent her head in grief, staring at the iridescent colors of her unborn chicks. When she spoke, her voice was thick with anger. "Not for your pleasure, little king of a little hill, but for the child who put her body between you and my eggs." The second griffin's tale. "I was born under the rose dome of Shadukium. Alone of all griffin, a woman carried me in her belly like a human child, and from her my egg issued, and from her I was born. It is a famous story, and I will not repeat it. My griffin mother always told me not to return to Shadukium, the city of my birth. It is a wicked place, she said. A man who keeps his knife hidden when others show theirs plain. I wanted to obey. I wanted to be happy on the heights of Nuuru, happy as Jin was, nestled under our mother's wing with the moon on his cerulean feathers. But I could not. I was drawn back and back again, to the strange sweet smell of decaying roses, to the mildewed walls which tapered into diamond turrets, to the dark gutters swollen with rain. I was drawn back to Giota, to the scent of her, which smelled more like mother to me than the soft golden straw of the nest. I followed that smell, the smell of blood and violets crushed underfoot, the smell of Giota's mouth. I did not remember exactly being inside her, but my heart knew that it had once beat beside another heart. I followed the memory of my heartbeat through the silver streets of Shadukium, the lacy shadows cast by the diamond turrets, until I found her, the woman who gave me birth, sleeping on a rubbish heap outside a ramshackle inn. My throat was tight, and I lay next to her, covering her body with my wings, weeping tears of gold into her hair. I flew over the plains between Nuuru and the city many times. Giota was always pleased to see me, though we rarely spoke. We pressed our heads together in the shade of wide-armed trees. We nuzzled each other and picked leaves, I from her ever-growing hair, she from my pelt. It was rarely necessary for us to speak, only to be together, in secret, mother and daughter, who could never call each other by those names. Jin did not understand, but of course he did not, who never grew in the womb of a woman. But he never betrayed me, and my true mother thought me hers and hers alone until the day she was slaughtered and her beak cut from her face to decorate an Arimaspian head. We hid ourselves away in the blinding cliffs, for we were still young and could not defend ourselves against so many. Jin covered my face with his wings as the last screams of our mother echoed through the crystalline crater. On that day, I left him to the nest that was his and went into Shidukium to console myself on the breast of Gyota. I could not stay under the rose dome. I was far too large to comfortably live in a city. But I built my nest of cedar and camphor outside that blooming arch, and each day one of us went to the other to hold our quiet communion. We were happy together, for a while. I wept the day she forged her chain and beat the bolts into the wall of the great basilica. I did not understand. I could not bear the thought of never sleeping again with her tiny heart beating against mine in my nest of redwoods. She tried to tell me it would be no different, that I could still come to her in this strange churchyard which was so near to the place where she bore me. But I knew it would be different, that something was ending before my eyes and I could not stop it. I stared into her dark eyes, my own lost in tears. Am I not enough? I whispered hoarsely. Can I not make you happy? Oh, my darling, she answered, her mouth muffled by her rumpled, wet dress. She put her hands into my feathers, as I longed for her to do. You have always made your Gyota happy, but I am not a griffin. I have allegiances which are not to gold or egg, and I have this duty to perform. I have no gold to watch over, only you. I tried to press my head against hers, but she turned away, opening the hidden seam in her black frocks with a mouth in her belly, the mouth that bore me, could speak freely. You will, Corey. You will have a clutch of eggs and a nest of gold, as all griffins do, one day. We must each tend to the talismans of our people, you to your gold, and Gyota to her wall. You've never told me the name of your people. I know nothing of you, of your ways and your blood. If you are leaving me for a wall and a chain, at least tell me why. Tell me what burden calls to you from what tribe to do this thing. Tell me who you are. She grunted and leaned against the crumbling moss-covered wall, holding her belly in her hands as she had done on the few days when she had spoken to me for longer than a few affectionate sighs. Days I remember now like feasts, holidays, festivals of her voice. She turned her lipless face to the sky and shut her black eyes. The tongue in her belly began to tell its tale. Just want to check how long this is. This next one. I'm usually a little smoother about this. This is quite a long one, actually. I think that we will wait until tomorrow to start the Anchorite's Tale. I have yet 36 nights of this. I've not stopped in the middle of a tale yet. I always stop at the end of one and the beginning of another. And I want to make sure we get all of the Anchorite's Tale in one piece. It actually is fairly important once we get into the second book. It's one of those that doesn't seem like much at the time, and then ends up being a big part of it. Questions. See, drink, drink. Nope. How does inspiration usually strike for you? Do you sit bolt upright in the middle of the night, crowing things like a combat wombat eureka? I mean, sometimes, yeah. Not often, but definitely there are moments where something will just pop into my head. I do remember that Blunderbuss was not originally a wombat. I can't remember what. Oh, she was a hippo at first, and then I went to Australia and hung out with wombats, and she was not a hippo anymore. But the combat wombat part just came sort of in the plane of that, of writing the Fairyland books. You play around and things pop out. I know that a lot of the sort of twists and turns of the Orphan's Tales came when I was like driving in the middle of the night. I used to drive from Virginia to Ohio back and forth all the time. And it's a long stretch of nothing on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Absolute nothing but like the deer I hit one time. And so that gives your mind a lot of time to kind of wander down various avenues. And, and so she a lot of the stuff with I can't say her name, that's a spoiler, with the girl in the garden and everything, I remember popping into my head, and I remember it because I remember pulling into a gas station and writing it down in a notebook so that I wouldn't forget it by the time I got where I was going. But a lot of times inspiration, like, you know, inspiration comes just sitting in the chair and writing, and I have various ideas for books. I have, I write using Scrivener, and so in my research file, I'll have different files that'll say scratch paper, and it will literally be me writing out questions for myself, like what do I need in this chapter? You know, what are the themes of this chapter? What fits these things? Like just trying to talk myself through you know, what it is I'm looking for that fits the scene. And I do often talk out books with either my partner or friends or other writers. Talking is very integral to my process. It says Blunderbuss feels so integral to the books but doesn't show up until 4. It's true. You know, she's definitely, she's a big part of 5, and like she matters a lot. Good Queen Bus. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, she's one of my favorite characters for sure, and she was nowhere near until the 4th book got a whole new cast. The deer, I did not actually hit the deer. The car in front of me did, and like the whole deer, which I named Clyde because bits of him were stuck in my car, like hurtled back and hit my windshield. It was very frightening, but my car held up really well. Yeah, so, but I would say that most ideas in my books, and definitely the ones that people like the most, just came from day by day sitting in the chair and writing the book until good things came out. And some of it will come just, you know, while doing other things, or watching things, or reading things, or just sitting playing video games and letting anything that lets my mind just sort of wander off is a source of inspiration. But for the most part, it's writing is so much less about inspiration and so much more about putting in the time. Which is not a very romantic answer, but it's the truest one. Anybody else? I'm glad there are Blunderbuss fans. I am very, very fond of her. Well, I will start the outro business, and if anybody has other questions, you can pop them right up. This has been Night 36 of the Orphan's Tales reading. You can find music by S.J. Tucker at sjtucker.com based on these books. You can buy copies of these books from your local independent booksellers, and I ask that you support them rather than Amazon. Amazon will be fine at the end of all of this. A lot of them may not be, so please purchase from their web portals. My local independent bookseller is printbookstore.com if you want to support them. You can follow me on Twitter at Kat Valenti. You can subscribe to my Patreon at Kat Valenti as well. Lots of really cool new stuff on my Patreon this month. And you can catch up in the archive at YouTube at Kat Valenti Live. And you can put something in the tip jar on my Instagram profile or my YouTube profile or my website, which is katherinemvalenti.com. And I will thank you by name on the next stream if you do. Obviously, I'm just doing this for connection and for something, some golden thread to lead us all through. But if you wanted to toss a coin to your witch belt is quite tight these days, and it would be deeply, deeply appreciated. And tomorrow I am actually doing a reading at 8 p.m. For Cereal Box Pub. I'm reading my pandemic story, which is called A Perfect Host. So we will be doing this at 7 tomorrow night, 7 p.m., which means you have to see me in the daylight again. Oh, it's the worst. But in order for me to have any time to transition between the two of them, we'll be doing it at 7. And you should tune into the Cereal Box Pub one because it's going to be cool. I've never read that story before. Do I have a daily writing time, or is it catch as catch can? Well, right now it's a mess because we have no childcare whatsoever. We had daycare, and like there was a beautiful schedule. There was a shape to the day, and now that's all sort of been tossed to the wind. And so we kind of alternate, one person working, one person with our son, every other day. Lately, and that's not been a lot of fun. It's very hard to build momentum when you have to sort of stop for 36 hours every time you sort of get going. But normally I do my best work, you know, in sort of before 5 p.m., which is such a weird thing to say because I used to write everything at night. I used to just be a complete night owl. I worked at night. That was it. And now I'm much more of a 9 to 5 writer. It's just better for my brain, but I don't always make it that way, and certainly not when the schedule's been so thrown completely out of whack. But I think we might be getting a little bit more help here shortly, so hopefully I can get back on track. How is my beef curry ravioli for breakfast? Sounds amazing. My beef curry was awesome. I made beef Penang curry. The recipe will go up on my Patreon this month. I watched a video on YouTube, and I really dislike watching YouTube videos. Just give me the recipe. I don't want to hear your life story and everything else that goes into fake smiles in YouTube videos. But this one actually gave me a lot of tips on like what my home curry was missing, and now I prefer the beef Penang curry I make to any that I get in the shops and the stores or restaurants. I love it, and it is so fast. It actually, like, making the curry takes a little bit less time than cooking the rice. It's just such a quick recipe, so I love my beef curry. I'm very pleased with it. I like it when I kind of hit on the final version of a recipe, at least for a couple of years before I'm compelled to switch it up again. I was doing a really good job with like quarantine cooking and baking, and then it's all just gone on so long. It's all just gone on so long, and like I've been wanting to make this guava cheesecake for weeks, and like I just haven't been able to get up the soul points to do it. But I will. Maybe even this week. But yeah, so tomorrow's a big work day for me. This is, we've got someone to that we trust who's been safe and distant and everything to look after our son. So big work day. I'm gonna get the whole thing, and it's gonna be great. So yeah, that's all. I don't know. I really probably, like, it's so funny, like, I had all these days in a row of recording these things and had my whole pattern down, and, like, took 2 days off, and I did none of the correct things, and now I've forgotten how to talk into a camera. Oh, look, the cooking thing, like, my God. I have ADD, and it's just astonishing how useless I am without medication. It's just amazing. Like, even like the cooking, which I've done all my life, and I'm very good at it, and I enjoy it, and I'm a very instinctual cook. I don't, follow recipes religiously ever, but like just having to do so many tasks one after the other is overwhelming unless I'm medicated. And so like the entire time I was pregnant, I didn't cook anything that entire 9 months. And a lot of other things sort of fell by the wayside too, so I just didn't have the mental capacity for them. And now by the end of the day, I'm just like, oh, it's so overwhelming to consider the notion of just so many steps after another. How old was I when I found out about my ADD? 31. I talked to people about it before, and all of them had the same response, which was that, well, you write books, you can't possibly have ADD. If you can make it all the way through a book, then you couldn't possibly have it. Yeah, but, if you pay attention, like, I was writing all of my books in a month or less, because if I took any longer than that, I couldn't pay attention to it. That's one of the things about ADD, especially as opposed to ADHD, which is different, is that it's hyperfocus or nothing. Like, yeah, sure, I can hyperfocus to the detriment of literally everything else in my life, but I couldn't just, like, do a little bit every day. I still have trouble with that, but like it was so difficult to get into that hyper-focused state, and hyper-focus is not sustainable for your whole life. So I was very late coming to it. I was only finding out really how many other people in my world had it, and they were also able to write books. It just, ADD doesn't mean you're non-functional. Everybody who gets to the age of 30 without a diagnosis has a whole bunch of coping mechanisms that they've used to like not be homeless, and I had a lot of them. I used to make jokes when I taught about that my work ethic is a workaround for my shitty personality. Like, that was my line. But I didn't realize that what I meant by shitty personality was a mental disorder. I don't think disorder is necessarily even the right word for it. It's very little understood. I think that attention Deficit and disorder are all three wrong words for what it is. It is a non-neurotypicality that is very much understudied and understood. Oh, Ursula Vernon got diagnosed. I mean, look, it's not uncommon among creative people, but I think what's, you know, a lot more common is people who would probably be more creative if they had gotten diagnosed sooner. Like people like Ursula and I, you know, you replace other people's ability to organize themselves with just this incredible drive, and determinedness to work through the way that your brain works. And you know, you don't, until you start talking about this with people, you don't really understand that other people's brains don't work that way. That, you know, other people don't get so overwhelmed by the idea of a recipe that they, you know, go into a tailspin because every step seems equally important to them, and it also seems equally important to everything else that you have to do in your life, and you can't figure out which thing comes first. This is not how people's brain works. Other people, neurotypical people. But it's just not something that's very well understood, and it's so different for so many people. It is very much a spectrum. And ADD and ADHD are different as well. Girls are massively underdiagnosed. And ADD, especially inattentive type, is much more common among girls. So anyway, I could go on about ADD forever, but it's definitely something that my life is a lot better when I am medicated. It doesn't make me a neurotypical person by any means. I mean, for one thing, the medication wears off after like 9 hours. But it makes it, you know, it makes me a much more functional person. Yeah. I mean, I used to be on a different medication, but now I have crappy ACA insurance, so now I'm on the most generic one, which is not as good, but what can you do? The freelancers, they do not have the good insurance. Yeah, well, that's a cheerful note to end on. Yeah, no, I can't think of anything. I'll probably cook something else tomorrow, but I don't know what it is yet. We'll see. I'm definitely having that curry for lunch. And I'm looking forward to the day tomorrow, which is, you know, I actually haven't looked forward to a day in a while. One day is like another in quarantine life. You know, a bunch of stuff is starting to open up here in Maine. I don't think it's a great idea, since we're still posting quite a few new cases for us, you know, per day. It's not great. But everybody wants the summer dollars, and the summer people are coming anyway, so I guess we're just throwing caution to the wind. I don't know. Technically, June 1st is supposed to open up a bunch of our economy, including restaurants, but bars will be open July 1st, and that was considered a conservative schedule. So I'm not sure why everything's suddenly opening up 2 weeks before even that. It's not getting better here yet, but American's gonna American. Again, cheerful things to end on. I'm gonna get out of here before I just start doing the big tragic mask face here on camera. I will see you guys tomorrow night. Come watch the Cereal Box Pub reading at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and Orphan Tales will be at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then we'll be back to normal after that. Love you guys so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. Love talking to you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.